In this video, we'll talk about in-group bias. We tend to favor in-groups who share our social identity, join a line between us and them. This tendency leads to a variety of biases, including but not limited to racial bias, gender bias, and bias against the LGBT groups. Categorization refers to grouping like things together. Categorization is not an abhorrent feature of our brains. Instead, it reduces mental effort, allowing us to organize and manage the overload of stimuli that constantly bombard us. Categorization helps our brains make decisions more efficiently by instinctively relying on patterns that seem predictable. By tuning us to the faces of people who look like us and dampening our sensitivity to those who don't, categorization sometimes hinders our efforts to embrace and understand people who are in outgroups. We show more empathy to in-groups but less empathy to out-groups. We tend to think members in our in-groups are smarter, more moral, and more just than the members in out-groups. Our brains are incredibly in tune to skin color. Flash a face for less than 1/10 of a second, the speed so short a time that we are not even sure we have seen something. We may claim to judge people by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin, but our brains respond to the skin color much faster than the character. We are better able to correctly recognize faces from our own racial group compared with those from another racial group. More importantly, when we view faces from other groups, our brain activity is very different. In one study, the stronger the racial bias, the less activation in the fusiform region, the brain region specializes in processing faces. In another study, white participants were presented with a series of different white faces. The neurons in the fusiform region fired away, responding vigorously to each face. However, when shown black faces, those white participants exhibited less brain activity in the fusiform region when shown black faces than shown white faces. The participants' dampened brain responses to black faces suggest the brain registered those faces from different racial groups in different categories. Once faces are characterized as outgroups, they are not processed as deeply or attended to as carefully. We reserve our precious cognitive resources for those who are like us. To form categories is to be human. But our unique cultures play a role in determining what categories we create in our minds and what we place in them and how we label them. In some countries, people consider religion or social class a more important way to sort people than race. And even within one country, the rules for who is in what social category can change over time. 3-month-old infants have already learned same race faces better than other race. How can you tell? Show an infant a picture of someone repeatedly, she looks at it less each time. Now show a different face. If she cannot tell the two apart, she barely glanced at it. But if it's recognized as being new, she looks at it longer. Children might develop the in-group bias in the absence of any ill intent. They grow in environments whose non-random social cues implicitly pave the way for in-group bias. If an infant is cared for by those with the same skin color, he or she is, of course, more comfortable with those with similar skin color. The more racist someone is in the implicit association test, the more intense activation in the amygdala, which is the center of processing emotions, particularly the negative ones such as fear and anxiety. Repeatedly show participants a picture of a face accompanied by a shock. Soon, seeing the face alone activates the amygdala. Such fear condition occurs faster for other race than same race faces. Moreover, people judge neutral other race faces as angrier than neutral same race faces. These are very depressing findings, but there is hope. The more interracial interactions we have, the less amygdala activation in our brains. This is because our cognitive control steps in to dampen the intense activity in the amygdala, calming down our fear and anxiety, and thereby reining our racial bias. In the field of education, under ESSA, English language learners are categorized as a group. The categorization intends to identify education inequity, but in turn makes ELL students more likely to be stigmatized by teachers. Using data from the early childhood longitudinal study, the researchers investigated teacher perceptions of over 2,000 students who spoke a language other than English at home. Across all the grade levels and content areas, teachers had lower perceptions of academic skills and knowledge of ELL students. Moreover, the teacher's negative bias were non-existent for ELL students in bilingual settings, such as dual language programs and traditional bilingual programs, where a teacher or a paraprofessional is using a language other than English at least half of the time. To overcome the in-group bias, the same group of researchers said being bilingual, coming from a racial or ethnic background that's similar to the students you teach, those things can really decrease bias and help children succeed. Leaders usually claim or justify that their decisions are free from the in-group bias because it is socially desirable to do so. Whether their decisions are truly free from the in-group bias is a different matter. In one study, to investigate public school superintendents' hiring decision, researchers sent the same job application package, including a cover letter, a set of paper credentials for a hypothetical middle school principal job, and letters of recommendation. The researchers sent the packages to the superintendents across the country and asked them to rate the job qualifications and the probability of extending an offer to interview. The only difference in the job application package is the applicants' names in the paper credentials. First name suggests gender, and last name suggests ethnicity. If a superintendent's hiring decision had no gender bias or racial bias, there should be no difference in their ratings of the hypothetical job candidate. A total of 192 superintendents returned their ratings. 94% of them were white, 5% of them were African American. The results show that male superintendents give higher ratings to non-Hispanic candidates than Hispanic ones, even when the candidates were equally qualified based on the paper credentials. If you have a Hispanic last name, you could be eliminated at the screening stage of hiring. In this video, we talk about the in-group bias. We tend to favor in-groups who share our social identity, join a line between us and them. Now it is time for you to provide an example of the in-group bias and reflect on how it influences decisions made by you or the people around you.